A lot of people, including myself, constantly think about the meaning of life. Why are we all here? Like, what do we even do? Like I say in most videos, I think about this a lot. Are we just here to eat and work and reproduce and die? What's the point of that? But then I looked over at Chester one day when he was sleeping and, I thought to myself, like, does Chester think about the meaning of life? Like, does Chester know that one day he's gonna die? Does he think about things like that? Do animals think like that? Upon doing some research on the topic, animals like whales don't leave their relatives behind who have passed away, elephants stay near the resting place of their loved ones, and dogs howl to mourn the loss of their friend. So I guess you could say they do. But then my mind wandered even more. Do they know when they're gonna die? Like, I've heard stories of, when cats are ready to die, they isolate themselves from everyone because, they know, and your life allegedly flashes before your eyes if you're a human, which you probably are and you're watching this video, but, where does that come from? Like, why does that happen only at that time in our lives? Just, crazy things to think about. But, there is one thing that I don't think animals can do, and that's think about the future. Like, let's take, for example, lions in the desert, right? When they kill something, I'm pretty sure they can't grasp the concept of saving some food for later when they're hungry. They just sink their teeth into whatever they killed and they have a whole meal. Whereas, with humans, we don't just sit there and eat the whole box of cereal or the whole pizza just because we can, because we grasp the concept of saving some for later. But, now let's take the concept of later and talk about it. Later is a very weird word to me. There are just so many meanings to later. Like, later could mean after this video, later could mean next week, later could mean years from now. One saying I've heard over the years is, do it now because later could turn into never. And I think you can interpret this two ways. Later could turn into never because you can forget, but later could also mean that you could just not get a chance to do whatever you were gonna do because you could die. If you watch my last video, you know that my mom didn't have a will and she said she'd do it later, and obviously later never came. See, here's the thing. I feel like we get so caught up in trying to plan for the future or planning for later that we have these expectations, right? We're gonna be here at this age, we're gonna buy a house at this age, we're gonna have kids at this age, and it's like we're supposed to do all these things when we reach a certain age, but whatever happened to just living? Like, I don't think Chester thinks about what he's gonna do tomorrow. He just waits till tomorrow comes and then he does whatever. He doesn't say, I'm gonna eat tomorrow at 11. He just eats when he's hungry. Then maybe he'll sleep. And, I know right now you might be saying, okay, well, you can't compare Chester's daily life to our human lives, but I think you can. And instead of trying to buy a house by the time you're 29, how about you just buy one when you're ready? Instead of having to have a car at 22, how about you just buy one when you're ready? Instead of having to graduate at 18 or 22 if you go to college or whatever it is, how about just graduating when you're ready? With kids, it's obviously a bit different because of biological clocks and things like that, but who says you have to wait till 29 to have a child? And I'm not saying that every 18-year-old should just go and have a kid now, but let's say that you're 18 and you're in a good financial spot and you think you could handle a kid and you have a good support system, then why not have one now? Who says that we have to wait? What, because Sheila from high school is gonna judge you for having a kid at 18? Well, fuck Sheila. Is Danny gonna judge you for not having a house at 29? Well, fuck Danny too. See, I think about the opinions of people not mattering because in reality they don't, but at the same time, the thoughts creep into my head of, well, what's the point? What's the point of me making this video? What's the point of going to school? What's the point of going to work? What's the point of video games? I don't even want to know how much time I spent playing games when I was younger, specifically at the end of middle school going into high school. Whoever played with me on Xbox and stuff like that, you know who you are. And we spent hours, days, weeks, months, years, probably, if you added it all up. And on one hand, in my head, I'm like, well, look how much time we wasted. But then I look at the other side and I'm like, I'll probably never experience something like that ever again. Having that carefree experience as an 11 to 16-year-old, which I hope everybody got to experience in their life. And like I said, well, you could say, what's the point for both sides of the argument? What's the point in anything? What's the point in life? And I think it's more of what you make it. Like, I spent so much time thinking about the meaning of life, but now, like, when I actually come to terms with it, I don't think there is a meaning. And then you say, okay, well, how do we find meaning? Well, I don't think you find it by looking for it. I think it finds you in a sense, right? Like, I think of it like this. If you have a goal of, saying, being an actor, then I think you can almost just let the chips fall into place. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. went to jail in April of 1996 and was in and out of jail until January of 2001. Like, a person who looked at his life when he was in jail may have said his life was over and they just wrote him off. Little did they know that he'd play a vital role in the Marvel movies and all those things, and his movies would have grossed over $10 billion. So, like I ask in every video, what's the point of this one? Well, I don't know. But if you feel like you're behind for whatever reason, think back to Robert Downey Jr.'s story. He went to jail at 31 years old. Sometimes I feel like I'm 25 and I haven't done enough with my life. Like, he was doing drugs and he went to jail at 31. Now, I'm not saying to sit back until you're 35 and you're going to be the next Robert Downey Jr., but don't feel so pressured by timelines set by others. And sometimes I think it's beneficial to sit back and just let your life run its course. Because, in the end, we don't necessarily make it out alive anyway. And as always, thanks for watching.